Hey, my name's Jonathan, and I'm a veteran.
Hi, my name is Daryl, and I'm a veteran.
My name is Chad, and I'm a veteran.
Hey, I'm Travis. I'm an Air Force veteran.
Hi, my name's Ashley, and I'm a veteran.
Well, hello, everybody. Happy Sunday. Welcome to Conversations with a Vet. I have a few guests. Yes, I said few. Waiting in the wings while we get some background. We wait for some more people to join. Ron Wayne, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. It's always a pleasure to have you. Jason, thank you as always for all of your support. We appreciate you dearly. So, I wanted to do a shout out. We are at 423 subscribers as of this moment. I literally checked it while the first portion of that was running, and we are just moving right along. So I'm super excited about that. So as a reminder, when we hit that 500 mark, there is going to be a giveaway. So I have several signed copies of veteran written books behind me that will be given away, as well as some additional things that are on their way as well. So we're going to have some, there'll probably be some tumblers, there'll be maybe a couple of coffee cups, and who knows what else. So I'm really excited about that. And I have been, the mind has been working overtime, and so hopefully in the next couple of weeks, you guys, I'll be announcing a surprise. And so it's for pretty much everybody who's watching within the United States, and an opportunity to help the channel to be able to continue with certain subscriptions to help with the editing process and some other things that go on behind the scenes that cost some money. So but I'm really excited about that as well. So any help with that will be greatly appreciated. And again, I will be posting about that within the next couple of weeks. So as we move forward, as I said, I have two guests. I'm going to bring one on right now, and that is Morley Levine. He is an Army Vietnam veteran. So please help me to welcome Morley. Hello, hello.
Hi, Carol.
How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Excellent.
And I just want to say it's Levine, not Levine.
I apologize. Levine, you are correct.
That's all right. No problem. I'm very used to it.
You know, and to clarify for you, it's Carol Lee, not Carol.
You're right.
And I did not do that on purpose, though. I just want you to know. So.
Fair enough.
So let's see. Okay. First off, I have to say, you look dapper today, right? You don't have your baseball cap on, and you've got a really nice sweater. You look great.
Thank you so much.
Did you shave for this?
I did, actually.
I think that's great.
I did.
So Jason says, thank you for joining us. Welcome home, and thank you for your service.
Thank you, Jason.
And just as a rule, so that as people post things in the comments, if it's pertaining to what we're currently talking about, because I don't want you to lose your train of thought. If it's pertaining, I'll put it out there for you to answer or comment on. If not, I'll highlight it for myself towards the end when it's question and answer time. Will that work?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Ron Wayne says, hey there, Morley.
Hey, Ron.
So Ron, and of course, Jason. Jason's my husband. So, but Ron has been a supporter of the channel since its inception. And so a huge shout out to him for that as well. Okay, we're getting up there. We've got 8 people watching currently. Super excited. I want to start now. You've seen a couple of my shows,
I have.
so you're kind of familiar with it. So I'm going to ask you the same question that I ask all my guests, and that is, would you please tell me a little bit in general? I mean, you can go in depth if you care to. That's up to you. About your childhood. Who was Morley as a kid?
As a kid,
As a
it
kid.
wasn't it wasn't the best of childhoods. I had a pretty rough growing up period. The divorce and shoved back and forth between my mother and my father. I wasn't a bad kid. It was just back in those days. It just, how things were. My mother was, single and raising three kids, and so I was shoved back and forth, and then um, most of the time lived with my dad and his wife, and
Okay.
and uh, and then went to school and
Were you studious?
I was real studious. If you consider D's and F's studious, I was actually a terrible student in probably through junior high school, through what little bit of high school I went through, mainly because of the the home life I was experiencing. It was pretty rough. I'm not going to get into detail about that. It's not important, but I couldn't grasp it. Maybe it was rebellious. I don't know. I just couldn't grasp it, the school part of it.
Did
Really,
you do any sports or anything of that nature? Now, I know it wasn't back
no.
then, it wasn't like it is today, right? Where they
Yeah,
have all of
yeah,
those.
yeah. No, I never got into the sports thing. Um, as far as through school academics, I mean, I played sports that everybody did, but no, I just never got into it. I don't know why.
What was your favorite thing to do as a child?
Oh God, that's a toughie. I don't know, because most of the time when I was growing up with especially with my dad, it was all about studying. I mean, he was really hard on school. He came he had a rough life growing up. His mother and father came from the old country. His father came from Russia. His mother came from Poland, and he had, I think, 5 or 6 brothers and sisters, and they grew up during the Dust Bowl. And then when he was 13, his mother passed, and my aunt signed for him to join the Navy at
Oh,
13 years
wow.
old. Yeah, he looked older than he was. And he had an uncle that found out about it and contacted the War Department about a year later. And of course, they booted him out, and he couldn't stand that uncle for the rest of his life. But then during the 50s, he was called back to Korea. So, in that respect, it, because of his lack of education as well, he was self taught. Um, so, education was really important to him, as it is to me today. And I'll
And that
get
makes a lot of sense. Yeah,
It does, it does.
absolutely.
So, and he wanted, I think deep down in his heart, he wanted the best for me, is what he wanted. So
Right.
I can't hold that against him. I just, it was just hard for me. It was very
Right.
hard, you know.
So,
And
okay, so
mhm,
you go into high school,
mhm.
and was that any better for you academically?
No, no, not at all. To be honest with you, it's the system. I got into high school. The system pushed me through to the 11th grade.
Wow.
Essentially, I only had an eighth grade education, if you think about it.
Mhm.
Dropped out of high school, um, ended up going in the Job Corps, which is a lot different back in those days than it is today. Um, and cooking was always I loved to cook, so I went in the Job Corps, and one of the presumptions in the Job Corps is that you had to do your education before they would start training you with a vocation. So I got my education in the Job Corps. Then I wanted to be a cook. I started training to be a cook, and uh, when I turned 18, I just I don't know. I didn't feel it was going where I wanted it to go. So I was supposed to take. I was at Fort Dix, New Jersey, is where they had us at that time, and I was supposed to take this girl that I had met to her senior prom, and that was I don't know, it was about July or August, something like that. I can't remember the time frame. And I got a hair behind my ear, and I went down and volunteered for the draft. I walked to the draft,
Wow.
and I was 18 years old, and them two, well, I shouldn't say fat ladies, but they were two fat ladies sitting back there, and they said, "You want to do what?" And I said, "I want to volunteer for the draft." And this is during Vietnam, right at the beginning.
What year was this?
That was 1966 when I went in.
Okay.
Yeah, when I went in, and so 2 weeks after that, I had my draft card, and that girl, left her sitting on the front porch crying like a baby because she was making plans for her senior prom or whatever it was at the time. And the next thing I know is, I had to fly back to Los Angeles from New York overnight to be at the draft board the following morning. Next thing I know, I'm in the Army, 4:30 in the afternoon. I'm in Continental Airlines flying to Fort Bliss, El Paso. I'm now in the
Wow.
Army.
Wow. And so, okay, so you're going to El Paso, Texas.
I went to El Paso, Texas for my basic training, Fort Bliss.
And
Um,
what was I want to go back a little bit, Morley. What was the basic training like? So for you, I mean, you took a bus, you get there on bus.
we flew to the airport. The bus picked us up, took us to the base, and
Okay.
I had this DI in our face yelling at us, and I can't remember everything he said. I do remember him saying, "You're going in to get your hair cut," and walked out. Everybody walked out bald, and we got
And
uniforms. And
what was it like for you initially? Like when you heard him screaming, and did it become real at that moment that oh my gosh, I just
no,
signed my life away?
you know what? No, it during basic, it back now it's different today, but in those days, when you went into the Army, they mentally would strip you of everything. You were brought down to the lowest minute detail they could bring you down. I mean, you had no self-esteem or anything. You couldn't even think for yourself.
Right.
And then over the course of the next 8 weeks, they would build you back up. And so I don't know. I've always been a follower anyway, and so I just fell into it. I
What
actually loved
did,
military life.
did you? What was the for basic training specifically? Was there an any kind of the training that they did? Was there anything that you really enjoyed
During
over
basic,
something else
during
during
basic,
basic? Hmm.
no, no,
No.
no.
Was there anything that you
Well, I mean,
really
I didn't dislike anything, but everything had a purpose, and we understood that. So you did what you were told to do. You were good little soldiers.
right?
And
But sometimes you can find areas that you enjoy more than others, right? Was there anything that you really didn't like in the training?
um,
As far as like the different things that they would train you in.
no, thinking back on it, I mean, I really don't remember anything in particular because once I went through basic, then I went to AIT. Now that was a whole lot rougher. I took my AIT, my second eight in Alexandria, Louisiana. Everybody knows about Fort Polk, rather. That's what we called it. And I took my AIT in Tigerland. Now that was tough. That's when I got a dose of reality because
Really?
in basic training, the first eight, you understood you were being taught how to handle a weapon, how to dress, how to behave. You were taught discipline during basic. Then I went to AIT, and back in those days at Tigerland, it was all jungle training. And anybody that was in the Army that was in Vietnam, and I know there's people out there doing this,
Mhm.
they know because if you went to Fort Polk to Tigerland, I don't have to say any more about it. Everybody knows Tigerland. And the whole premise was, and this is back in the mid 60s, to teach us jungle warfare. And that's what we were taught. And I remember the DIs constantly, they pounding in your head. Everything we're teaching you may someday save your life. Well, a few short months later, I had all that training, all those words made sense to me in a very
Right.
realistic way when I shipped overseas. Um,
How long
and
was your AIT?
8 weeks,
8 weeks.
8 weeks.
Okay.
Basic was 8 weeks. AIT was 8 weeks. Then you had OJT, and that was a year on
And
the job
OJ.
training. On the
Oh,
job
okay.
training.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah,
What was your MOS?
I was an 11 Bravo 20. I
Which
was I
is
was, I was trained as combat infantry. That's
okay.
what I was, infantryman.
Okay. And
And
is that what you signed up for? Did you have an option, a choice?
no, because I was drafted, I, I, I
But
didn't have
you
any choice in the
volunteered,
matter.
which is why I was questioning that.
I'm sorry, say it again.
You volunteered, so that's why I was wondering if you had
Oh, in
an
that respect,
option.
no.
Yeah.
They were just back in those days. The government was looking for bodies, and that was it. Even the guys that enlisted, they didn't. They said, "Well, I want to do this." Okay, the recruiter say, "Okay, yeah, we're signing you up for that." Well, you got what they gave you.
Right,
That
right.
was bottom line.
They
And
needed the numbers.
yeah, they needed the numbers exactly.
Um, okay, so you finish AIT, and
Mhm.
then how long after graduation from there do you get sent over to
I
Vietnam?
had, I think I had 2 weeks off. I think before I had to report to, before I reported to, I think I went to Oakland next, and that's
California?
because that's where I was going to ship out from,
Oh, okay. All right.
Oakland, California. Yeah, and then they put us on Mac V Air Force plane and spent the next, I don't know, 12 hours or so in the air. We landed in Wake Island in the Philippines. We had a layover there. So went at 2 o'clock in the morning. A bunch of us went to the bowling alley and got drunk. What else are you gonna do? And then later that morning, got we got it on the back on the plane, and a couple hours later, we landed in a country that I couldn't even hardly say the name or the city we were in. I was landed in Pleiku, Vietnam,
Wow.
and I was assigned to the 25th Infantry and spent a week in the base camp. And then I was assigned to a recon unit, which I absolutely loved because we were less than a platoon of guys. We weren't LERPs, we weren't Green Beret or anything. And no, I take that back. I guess I was assigned to a company for about 3 weeks because that's when I was in my first combat. I was in about 2 weeks in the country before I was in combat. And then they assigned me to a recon unit, which was, I absolutely loved it because we were just less than a platoon of guys, 19-year-old kids. They send us out someplace, tell us we'll see you in a week or two, whatever it was. And we were just to go out and get information, go bang, bang if we got in trouble and run like hell and, not get caught.
Right.
And that lasted for about 3-4 months. Yeah.
When you first got there, what was going through your mind when you first landed?
I didn't know what to expect. I was scared.
Were you?
Oh my God, yes. I'd never been in a war before. Never been
Right.
in a battlefield. And like I said, I've never even heard of the country. Most people in the United States never heard of Vietnam, um, much less been there. And
Right.
so it was just, you didn't know what to expect.
Mhm.
I got off the plane, we get to the base camp. They gave me some clothes, a helmet, a rifle, some ammunition, and said, "Go see that guy there." And
Did you take anything from home with you? Were you able to take anything from home?
no, I didn't. No, I didn't carry anything.
Photos, any of
No,
that? No?
no, 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 no.
All right. So you are doing this recon with these other 19-year-old kids. And um, if you had to guess, how long did they have you out there for? A week or two?
Sometimes 2, 3 weeks. Yeah.
Okay.
we were, yeah.
How many miles do you figure you traversed in that time frame?
I haven't got a clue because we had a we had a location we wanted to get to, um, get information on that location or the village, then go somewhere else. Time when we were over there, time had no bearing. It was
Right.
daytime, nighttime, and that was it.
Okay.
That was it.
Okay.
And then in March of '67, um, uh, there was an incident, and they disbanded our unit and assigned us to a company. So,
Okay. Um, so I have to ask about the food. Was it MREs
MREs?
for food? Is that what you ate?
No, I was American, not Vietnamese.
No.
we were
The
eating.
what was
We
you
ate
yes.
World War II sea rations.
Okay. All right. Because
And
nowadays it's MREs for most the
the
military.
and the
Yeah.
reason I made the statement that I made was because I don't know, about maybe 6 months into my tour, they were coming out with the MREs, but they were giving the MREs to the Vietnamese army. I think
Oh,
they're trying them out. I don't know, but no, we were lucky enough to have god awful World War II sea rations. And if anybody was there, knows what I'm talking about, yes, I still carry my P-38 on my key ring.
now
No
that's
more.
yeah, I'll have to be looking that up.
Yeah.
So, all right, what out of your sea rations,
Yeah.
what was the constant thing that you had that you enjoyed?
Oh, I like the hot dogs and beans. And if you were lucky, you got pound cake with fruit cocktail. Um, I can't remember what the others were. The ones that nobody ate, even the Vietnamese people wouldn't eat them. We'd throw the cans at them, and even though they couldn't read them, they wouldn't eat them either. It was a ham and lima beans with water added.
Ew, I wouldn't eat those either.
We would nobody ate nobody liked that. That was awful.
Wait, I have to take that back. My aunt would probably eat that.
My
Um,
wife would too. My wife loves them. To me, it's a sign of a sick mind if you eat that stuff.
aw, poor wife.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, so how long were you in recon then, did you figure?
Um, about 3 4 months because there was, when I say an incident, something happened. Well, nothing we did. People sometimes somebody will say to me, "What was it like in Vietnam?" Or people will ask me on the street, and the only way the only thing I can tell them is I say, "Did you ever see that movie Platoon?" "Oh, that was a great movie. That was a fantastic movie." I said, "Well, let me tell you something. That movie was all Hollywood, but it was based on an actual event." And I say that knowledgeably because I was in that event. And as a matter of fact, two of the people that I know of that are still alive that were in it, they live about 100 miles east of here, up in Crossville, Tennessee, up there.
Okay.
It was our medic and our radio man. I spoke to the radio man some years ago. But what it was essentially is, without going into detail, it was 3 companies of Americans that were surrounded and ambushed by a division of bad guys. And after it was over with, it went on all day and early in the evening. After it was over, 17 men walked out alive, Americans. And so after that, they disbanded our unit and assigned us to a company, and I became an infantryman from that point on.
Okay. So we have a comment goes back to we were talking about the C rations and the P-38. And
Mhm.
that is from Ron Wayne. And he says his uncle that served in Vietnam gave him a P-38. He said, "You'll use it more than you think. I still carry it today. It gets lots of use."
Absolutely. He knew what I was talking about.
I'm pretty sure I know what it is.
It's a can opener,
That's what I was yes,
can
yes,
opener, bottle opener. Yeah.
yes. So, but I didn't want to say and
Yeah.
be wrong, right? So
Fine. You're not going
I
to know
waited
this.
till somebody else threw it out there. Thanks, Ron.
Yeah.
So, what company did you get attached to after recon?
I was assigned a Charlie Company, second in the 35th Infantry Cacti Division of the 25th Infantry. Is who I was with.
That
And
title is massive.
well, not that bad. 25th was our division,
Right.
and no, I never made it to Hawaii. I never saw Hawaii. Um, uh, we were second in the 35th. We were Cacti Division, so we were known as.
And what is cacti?
It what it was just the insignia. The
Okay.
cacti, you said? Cacti. Yeah.
Okay. A cactus?
Yeah, yeah. So it's
Oh,
cactus,
but
but
it's multiples.
it was cactus. I'm trying to remember. I've got it at the house. It had another little symbol on it, and we were the guys that were pretty well known in the jungle because we were the guys that carried the ace of spades around in our helmets, and there was a reason for that. And if anybody that was overseas in combat knows why we had that ace of spades, and
Okay.
I don't want to go into detail. It's not necessary.
That's perfectly fine.
But there was a reason we all carried those. In our
Okay.
helmets.
And then how long were you with that company?
I was with them for the whole year that I was
The whole
there,
year that you
uh-huh,
okay.
until
And
December,
December of 67?
7,
All right.
yeah.
You then get to come home
I came back
stateside.
to came back to the world, yes.
And how
Yeah,
was that for you?
awful.
Awful. And yeah, that's one of those, we talk a lot about on this channel. And I know there's several other podcast channels with veterans and that, just talk about that and how horribly you guys were treated. And I am so happy to be able to say that today in today's society, we recognize what you did and we welcome you home with open arms.
Well,
Um,
yeah.
Go
Well,
ahead.
you know, from the day I came from the very first day I set my foot on the ground at Fort Lewis, Washington, when I came back to the world, I left there and I landed in um, LAX, Los Angeles. My mom was there, my sister, and my first wife. Uh, and from that day on, I always said, it sounds selfish, I know, but I felt I wanted my parade. I
Well,
served this country.
yeah.
I served this country, and I served it proudly, and I would do it over again. Um, but never got it. Nobody, especially in the West Coast, it was, you know, I was made to be felt like I was lower than whale dung for what we did over there. Uh, and I always waited for my parade, and I never got that parade until I moved here to Tennessee 25 years ago. And my God, you couldn't ask for a warmer welcome home.
Yes. Yes. Tennesseans are just
Oh,
really welcoming individuals, and
yeah.
as a state as a whole. I'm very pleased to be a part of this state of
Well, as
Tennessee.
am I now.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, because
Well,
I
it's
lived
because
here.
you met me.
You changed my whole world. You rock.
Uh, you so how long were you in the army?
I spent 2 years. I did when I came back to the world. I'm sorry, my sinuses are acting up. When I
That's
came
okay.
back to the world, I had 6 months left in. So they sent me to at that time to the absolute armpit of creation, Fort Riley, Kansas, which back in those days was the Fifth Army. And I reported for duty in January, and I mean it was snow pretty deep. I can't say what I want to say.
You can
Um,
say this is your platform. This is
well,
what
no,
it's here for.
I'm trying to watch my verbiage, my words. And but I spent 6 months at Fort Riley, and that's actually where I began my driving career. And I I was 20 years old, and I loved military life. I adored military. To this day, I still do. And I real seriously thought about reenlisting because I had enough foresight to know if I reenlisted, I could have done 20 years, got out, never had to work another day in my life with full benefits. But my first shirt and I, we didn't get along real good. A guy that had never been in combat in his life. I had a captain that was only been in the Army a few years, never been in combat. And if I'd signed my name to go to reenlist, they were going to put me right back in Vietnam and with my MOS. And I had this thing about living, and I was wounded over there. So I didn't want to go back and take a chance of coming back in a body bag.
How severely were you wounded?
Man, I'm sorry.
How severely were you wounded?
No, not real. Not real.
Oh.
I got shrapnel on my leg from a mine. A mine blew up.
Not fun.
Burned like a Dickens.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah. So
How long did it take to heal?
It was pretty superficial. I mean, it just
Okay.
barely just broke the skin of my thigh, and they sent me down to a medic tent. The medic, excuse me, took a pair of pliers or tweezers and pulled it out and put some gauze and medicine on it, and gave me a little pat in the tuchus and said, "Hasta la pasta," go back to your unit now. And what's so funny is that when you're in that situation, when you're in combat like that, if you will, you don't think about what the worst can happen to you because your training kicks in. So I didn't really you don't really think about things. Even if a guy next to you gets shot, you just automatically know what to do.
Right.
And you don't panic over it.
Right.
Because you're so well trained, plus the experience that you gain while doing what we did over there.
Right.
Made a big difference.
So you decide you're not going to reenlist. So what do you do next?
I had a job waiting for me in Dallas, Texas, from a family member. Of all things, being a bomb inspector on walleye bombs back in the day. And are we still there, Karen? Oh, I'll keep talking. Anyway, and I became a bomb inspector. I think we lost something. Oh, there you are. You there? Oh, I know what happened. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I know what happened. So anyway, I became a bomb inspector, and then did that for, I don't know, 8-9 months. No, I guess a little over a year. And then I started my driving career. I became a truck driver, and did that up till 15 years ago. Did cross country for 40 years. Well, actually 45 years cross country truck driver. And now, about 15 years ago, they put me on insulin, so it forced me to retire. I had to lose my commercial license, and I've just gotten fatter and sassier since. And
So now that I'm done with my little coughing fit.
it's okay. Did I come through? Was I coming
Yes.
through? Oh,
Yep.
okay. I figured that's what happened.
I get a tickle every once in a while. And
Yeah, I understand.
okay, so did the trucking, when you did the trucking, was
Yes.
that something that you enjoyed, or was it just something that you did?
Oh my God. If you were to cut my wrist, I would bleed diesel oil. I even as a kid, I wanted to drive truck.
Oh,
So
wow.
I mean, I think beside my wife and my family, trucking is my first love. It's
Okay.
I loved it. I did cross country, and it's a way of life.
Right. It
You
is. I understand that. So I'm gonna excuse me.
That's right.
Okay. Ron Wayne says, from bombs to trucks. Sounds like a great line of work.
Well, kept me on top of things.
I absolutely love your sense of humor too, Morley. I have to say that. That's
Thank you. That's
just one of those things that yes. Okay,
thanks.
so
Sweet of you.
you have since you've retired, you continue to serve in the sense of helping veterans and with, your all of
Yeah.
the things that you do. So explain some of that for me.
Well, if anybody out there listening is looking to hire somebody, I retired 15 years ago and I'm so busy I need a job so I can relax. Um, I I'm so involved with veterans of I say it very loosely, veterans affairs, if you will. I don't work for the VA or any or VSOs or anything else like that. I I've just because of over the last 5, 6 years, really, I've gotten involved with a veterans organization, which has helped me a lot. I belong to Vietnam Veterans of America. We're Chapter 1140 out of Franklin, Tennessee, and because of that, I've I've learned a lot of the needs of what veterans are looking for or need or information that a lot of veterans just don't have. And so I've gotten so involved with that that takes a lot of my time up. Um, I visit two assisted living homes every week. I sit with veterans there and just visit with them. My eldest veteran is 90. He'll be 98 at the end of this month. He's a World War II veteran, and he's just as spunky as could be. And we don't sit around and talk war stories. We visit, and it helps them out a little bit. Um, I'm involved with our local VSOs down here. Um, through our chapter, we go out and help veterans. If a veteran needs a wheelchair ramp built, or a little bit of home improvement, or anything a veteran could possibly need help with, if we can help, we, I delve in both feet. Um, I just I don't know if it's my forte or if I enjoy helping other people, and and plus it's an out for me. It's helped me psychologically because of my own problems that I've had with since I've been back from overseas.
When did you
Makes
start doing all of that?
um About 5 years ago, I guess now, I really got involved in it when I joined. Well, yeah, when I joined Vietnam Veterans of America, um, I that's when I really started getting involved in it. As far as helping people,
Right.
my help goes back further than that, though, because you know what a lot of people don't understand, and even these men and women coming back today, that we have. I, I use the term very loosely. A lot of psychological issues, not a problem, but issues, because when we do, and I'm speaking in general now, any soldier that's been overseas, when we do the things we did, like in my case, at 19 years old, did and saw things that no 19-year-old snot-nosed kid should ever have to see or do. Um, Grown men shouldn't have to do some of the stuff we did when we were overseas. And these people coming back today, the same issue. They they uh, they serve this country, but then you can't come home and tell your wife, your husband, this is what happened. You carry that monkey on your back the rest of your life. I still have the issues, and so my my big break really came. And if I can digress on this,
Absolutely.
about 9 years ago, I was at Walmart and I had my hat on, my Vietnam veteran hat. And a guy runs into me and says, we started talking. He was the first cav. I was 25th. And he says, why don't you come and join us for breakfast at Cracker Barrel? It was him and another guy. I said, fine, no problem. And did that. And over the period of the last 9 years, three of us have escalated to, on a good day, if everybody shows up, 32 guys, all but maybe 4 of us are veterans that have been in a war zone, if you will. And psychologically, because it's done more for me than it was when I was seeing the shrink. I saw a shrink for a while, and she really did nothing for me at all. So being around people that I don't have to explain myself to, that have walked in my shoes as I have in theirs, has done more for me and all of us. We collectively we talk about it than trying to see somebody or explain to somebody that doesn't understand.
Right. Right.
I hope that makes sense, but
It absolutely does. um, so I met you
mhm.
at Vet Fest.
Shh, you weren't going to tell anybody where we met. Remember, your
Your
husband's
wife's not
listening.
there, is she?
Vet Fest, yes, we met at Vet
Yes.
Fest.
Yes. And it was really nice to have the conversation with you.
Well, I think if I may interrupt you on that, just because Vet Fest doesn't happen all over.
Correct.
For anybody that doesn't know, Vet Fest, there's a lady out here that puts a program together called Vet Fest, and it's strictly for veterans. She'll have food trucks out there. Anything that has to do with veterans, it's open to everybody to come to, and she does it once a year. And that's what Vet Fest is. It's a welcoming for veterans and their families. So,
But it's open to the public.
yeah, absolutely open to the public.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And which I think is wonderful that they do that because it allows the public to get to know veterans and,
Absolutely.
just to shake hands, say thank you. And even, that's the thing I have said for the longest time is you don't know just by looking at somebody if they're not wearing a hat or a shirt or a jacket that says that they are a veteran, you do not know
Mhm.
that they are. And, to be kind to every person is really important, I believe, because you just don't know what that person has sacrificed for this country and, each and every one of us. And I think not to mention being kind to people is just nice. Right. I mean, I don't know how else to put it, but
Yeah, you're right.
um
Mhm.
I believe in that because like I said, I didn't realize I had gone and gotten my vehicle, had the oil changed and tires rotated and I think transmission fluid flushed. And I was sitting there at the dealership while they were doing this and I was just started this channel. And one of the salespeople, since I was standing there talking, he asked me what it was about. And I told him, turns out he's a Marine veteran. And I'm standing there at the reception desk, and the receptionist is like, "Oh, yeah, my dad's a veteran." I mean, and then I went outside, and one of the maintenance guys was out there, and he has a son who's a veteran. All 3 right there in one dealership. And that was, I talked to 4 people total, and 3 of them are veterans. So it's really, you just don't know who you're going to be talking with. So it's really important in my mind.
Yeah. You know what? Can I say one more thing too? And the questions come up a lot of times. I've had people come up to me and say, "Well, I ran into a veteran, but I don't know what to say to the person, is that, or anything." And I say, to the kids especially, I'll tell them, my generation especially, which means more to us than anything else in the world, to have somebody just come up to us and say, "Thank you for your service." That means more to us. That's our parade. That's what I'm talking about when I say the parade.
Right.
That's for my generation, especially. Um, like I say, we came back to a world that wanted nothing to do with us. And oh my God, the names we were called, the Walter Cronkite put this nonsense on the news and feeding all this baloney to the world. And people got the impression that we did these ugly, horrible things over there. Well, we did a few, but we came back to a world that we didn't ask to go over there and do what we did. Our country said, we need you.
Yep.
And a lot of times, if I'm writing an article or something, I'll put on there that this is my country. And I've had people say, how dare you say this is your country? It's my country. I fought for this country.
Yep.
I have the right to say it's my country.
Blood,
And
sweat, and tears right there.
it is. And so, I mean, I tell people, if you see a veteran, don't be afraid to go up and talk to the person. Thank you for your service. Goes right to the heart. It means more to us than anybody can ever know. I mean, just it's. I don't know how to make it sound any better than to put it that way. That's all it needs to be said. Thank you for your service. Those few words mean so much to a veteran because, like I said, especially for our generation, we did not get our parade.
Right.
We just didn't get it, and that's my parade to me when people take the time to say that to me. It really
Now,
is.
the last, I don't know how many years, the thank you for your service for Vietnam vets has changed to welcome home and thank you for your service. Do you recall the first time you heard that?
When I moved to Tennessee, when I moved to Tennessee, I moved here
And
a number of years back, and you know what else too, Carol, is that the phrase "welcome home." You're not going to hear people say that. You know who's going to say it? Is I'm going to say it to another Vietnam vet. He understands.
yeah,
You know, we have a reason for saying that to each other because nobody else did.
right.
So,
But nowadays, and I can say in all confidence, I know my husband and I say that to Vietnam veterans when we know that they're Vietnam veterans.
mhm.
And I know there's several that watch the channel that also are not veterans, but if there is a Vietnam veteran, same thing, they will say it. It's becoming more popular from the civilians as well to
You-
say to Vietnam veterans.
yeah, yeah. And I'm not gonna get on my beliefs on that, but yeah, it really is. Well, I mean, no,
Well, a
I don't mean
different era that it right, and I think that's what it comes down to. We
it,
have,
but
um
yeah. I don't mean that in a derogatory way either. I
right,
just feel well, I guess I should say it that I think what it is that from two two generations back, being the kids their kids of today, that they've heard a little bit of how their parents, if you will, treated us, our generation, when we came back to the world. So I almost get the sense that it's a almost a feeling of guilt to say that, you know, it sounds horrible for me to say it that
well,
way, but I don't mean to.
I think there's, dependent upon the view, right? You're inside looking out, and I'm outside looking in.
Yeah.
And the way what I feel is I think that several people, we're becoming in a lot of regard. Now, this is a generalization, so but I think we become more compassionate to people around us over time, specifically for those who have been deployed
Yeah.
and in combat, and we're recognizing some of our faults, and we're trying to make it right.
That's probably what I'm trying to say, but you said it in a lot nicer way than me because I'm a jerk about it. So what can I tell you? You know, but you know, I'll tell you one thing. When it comes to that too, I mentioned that I belong to Vietnam Veterans America,
Mhm.
our chapter, and I don't know what the other chapters do. We have a meeting tomorrow, as a matter of fact, the second Monday of every month, and every time we start our meeting, Rich will get up and he'll he'll say a prayer. We pledge to the flag. Then, be, right after that, he'll ask if we have any new members or anybody who's visiting our chapter for the first time. And invariably, our chapter is 100, I think 153, 154 strong right now, just our
Wow.
chapter alone. And we generally have anywhere from 40 to 60 people come to our meetings. Um, just the Vietnam Veterans are not AVVA. And Rich will always stand up and say, do we have any new members? They'll raise their hand. He'll ask them to please stand up, say their name, who they served with, what branch. After they said that, we always say, welcome home in front of God and everybody.
Yeah.
So it means a lot to us. It really does. It goes to the heart.
Yeah. And I can't say enough how much I cherish our veterans.
Well,
And because they've been able to do something that I cannot. I know my limitations for one, and I'm really short. So, I couldn't ever reach the pull-up bar anyway. So,
yeah.
um, but, um, so I recognize that and I appreciate it. And I thank each and every veteran.
Well, like I said,
Now,
we really appreciate it. We appreciate people saying it.
you go, your chapter, do they go into schools or how, do they talk to kids?
We the, the chapter as a whole, no. We do other events as a chapter, but like I in Murray County up here in April, I think it's March or April, we have mule days. I'll put a booth up there. We are you have to understand too that we're a VVA in our chapter, we are a 501c3. So we can't sell anything. We can ask for donations, which we
Correct.
gladly take. And that's what supports the things that we do to help other veterans, if you will. I have, and numerous times, I've been invited to talk to a few schools, homeschoolers. I've just one of my friend, I had him do it from Veterans Day at one of the schools, needed a speaker, and I set it up with them at a junior high school level. So, but we try to help people out. Our chapter does. But
So
yeah,
in leading into that question, there is somebody specific that you had met who's actually waiting in the wings. He's waiting backstage.
wait a
And
minute. I'm not going to be queen for a day here, am I?
no.
You don't remember that? You're too young to remember that show.
No, I do remember that.
Okay.
To be clear, I do remember that. But and his name is Luca.
Ah,
And how did you meet Luca and who is he to you?
I think I met Luca at a Gary Sinise concert here last year. I think it was Gary Sinise's. Um, our chapter works with Gary Sinise's organization as well. Lieutenant Dan, if anybody doesn't know Gary Sinise, he moved to Tennessee. But anyway, so we're at this event, outdoor event, and I see this young man walk around in a full gala of uniform. And I thought, I knew it. He would, it just didn't look right. He was in the fatigues, helmet, and everything. So I went over and started talking to him, and he introduced himself to me, and I met him and his mother. And that's just the way he is. He loves, I guess he loves military. Smart kid. Oh my God, he's smart when it comes to that stuff. And so I met him there. And then I put an event on with one of your guests a couple of weeks ago, Jim Walsh, who's a friend of mine also. He's with an organization. And I put an event on it, the assisted living home one of the homes I visit. And Jim came and did the event for me. And Luca came fully dressed. And everybody was impressed with this young man. But what impressed me more than anything else was that after just about the event was over, Luca stood up in front of the crowd and just gave this speech that was just unbelievable, thanking people, explaining how he felt about it and everything else like that. So through that, there's no physical relationship. I met him and his mother and his aunt, and we've just became friends, if you will, if he doesn't mind me calling him that. And I stay in touch with him. I'm just so impressed with this young man, because
And
he's a true American. Let me tell you right now, he really is.
after seeing, well, I spoke with him a few times now, briefly, but um, very mature for his age.
Yes,
And I do have some photos, but I want to go ahead and bring Luca on.
please do.
Hello,
Hi, Luca.
hello.
Hello.
Hi, Luca. There I make that hand up.
There you go. So, Luca, um, Morley, of course, as you heard, he was, telling a little bit about how the two of you met, and obviously, you made quite the impression on him. Um, so, tell me a little bit about you, as far as uh, what I guess what grade are you in? First off,
Well, I'm in 8th grade, but I'm about to go into 9th grade, so high school for us in
okay,
Tennessee.
yes,
Um,
excellent. And how long have you been? How long have you been dressing up in
for
military?
for the most part, about 2 years, 3 years. I started really taking a more of a dressing interest in maybe 7th grade, but yeah, around 2 to 3 years, I'm gonna say.
Ron
Um,
Wayne says, just real quick, Luca, he says, "Hey there, Luca."
I good to meet you. Um, But to me, I want people to see that when they see me dressed in my kind of army uniform or the year that I'm doing or the battle that I'm doing, I don't want them to see me. I want them to see my generation, to know that we are very interested in veterans and what they did, because I'm currently 14 years old. I cannot imagine being 4 or 5 years older than I am now and being told to go do what these soldiers had to do, these veterans. And it is so important to me that they did that. And I mean, I can't imagine anything, being able to do anything that they did. They did. So, yeah, that's that's just what I want people to see when they see me in my uniform, even if it's not
Because
totally.
right, because and I'm going to go ahead while we're on that subject, and share some of the photos that you sent me. Um, so bear with me here. Okay, so the first photo, let me make sure everybody can see this. Can you see that up there?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So, I mean, in this particular photo, and I'm going to make sure to make it, see if I can make it a little bigger. And it's it's one of those that you're quite young, right? So you're very young in this photo,
Yes, ma'am. 12.
and 12 years old. And you are dressed now. Is this all authentic gear that clothing that you're wearing?
No, ma'am. It is not.
Okay. Um, who did this belong to? Do you know, or was it given to you? Did you pick it up at a Army Navy?
No. Well, if you look at my boots, my gaiters, which are the canvas wrappings around my legs, those I got at an army surplus store down near Nashville, which recently closed. Their name was Friedman's, I believe.
Okay.
Picked those, and alongside the pouches, which actually, if I'm not mistaken, those are Vietnam medic pouches. Right, Morley, those
Uh,
are
I can zoom in a
yeah,
little more if you
yeah,
want to.
it looks like medic pouches.
medic pouch, because at the time I wasn't as knowledgeable with the uniforms and
Yeah,
what men would wear. But yeah, this was my best impression that I could do of my grandfather, Powell Raymond Ferrer, who served in the 34th Infantry Division, 168th Regiment. That's why formerly known as, or also known as, the Red Bulls Division, which you can see on my shoulder there. That's the patch. Um, Something I think is funny though, Morley, is you also you said that you took a girl to Fort Dix in New Jersey. Did you say?
I was seeing a girl when I was when I was in the Job Corps. I was seeing a girl that she lived at Fort. She lived up there, yeah. And
All right, that's ironic to me because I have some pictures that Carol Lee. I don't know if you have, but there's photos of my grandfather at what we assume to be Fort Dix, New Jersey, in around 1941.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's take a look here. Hang on.
So we thought that was pretty ironic.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Are you holding
Okay.
a rifle? I can't tell what that is.
hang on.
That's
let's see if make sure I'm making sure I can. Okay. I have to close one thing to open another, so bear with me.
Alrighty.
Okay, and let's share this again. Okay.
That looks like the old bayonet training.
Yeah, that's what I saw too. And so is that the one, Luca, you're talking about? Or
Yes, it
Dix.
is. So
Fort Dix?
you see the gators in the picture there. That's what I tried to, kind of recreate. But basically this is 1941, and he has something I think is unique about this picture is that his helmet that he's wearing is a World War I doughboy helmet, which like I said, the Americans used during World War I. An early war, they hadn't come out with the US M1, helmet that you would see in, movies, and it was just used because this was those were being produced in April, or tested, and I don't know exactly what month this is, but I thought that was kind of interesting to see that that's kind of like a timestamp to show the time period. But that rifle he has is an M1 Garand rifle with a bayonet attached. He very well could have used that rifle, and probably did, in all the battles he was in, which is very awesome to me and very unique. I can't imagine, carrying that with you so much and treating it like a child so often. And you have to take care of it and do as many things as you can with it.
Yeah.
I had a friend overseas. Most of us carried M16s. A few guys had M14s, but this one guy, Smitty, he carried an M1. But Smitty
Really?
he was certifiable though. He was kind
Real.
of a loony up here. He did some things that weren't supposed to be done. And also, as far as Carol Lee, as far as that doughboy helmet goes,
Mhm.
I've got one on my dresser at home right now.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Serious, Morley?
I'm sorry.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I told you about it before. I have one.
Dang.
I'll show you.
I also wanted to show you that. I know I've showed this to you before, Morley, but you were talking about your P38. I have mine right here.
There you go, buddy.
Look at that.
There you go.
So this doesn't get used as often as Ron's, who he was talking about his, but
I think-
veteran that to me, and I keep it with me all the time. So yeah,
Good thing. I think
Keep going.
I think the P38's been around since the dinosaur days.
for sure.
Let's see. I know I have some other photos here, so bear with me.
Alrighty.
Okay. So, okay, with the doughboy, what's the purpose of having it tipped?
So there wasn't necessarily a purpose at the time. My grandfather was just kind of goofing off to take a picture because that was, just something. He had a camera. There were cameras. He was messing around, so he just tilted it, probably to show off. I don't know.
Okay.
But I doubt there was really a purpose for that. However, during the First and Second World War, and probably up till Vietnam, most of the helmets weren't used to deflect bullets, or they weren't made out of Kevlar, which I assume they probably are now. Back then, they were mostly used for shrapnel, to deflect shrapnel rather than bullets. However, I do think that the M1 helmet that was used later in the war, not the doughboy helmet, could deflect, I think, 35 caliber. I don't know, but I think that it could, but it wasn't made for that. There wasn't really a purpose for tilting helmets or doing certain things with them. There were, most of the time, I don't know how accurate this is, but some soldiers would leave their helmets unbuckled because they thought that if a bullet were to hit them and it deflected, the helmet would pull back because of how heavy it is, and it would break their neck. But that's from what I've heard. I don't know how accurate that is, but I think most soldiers left it unbuckled for that reason. But in terms of what you asked with the tilting, I think that was just a photography thing. I don't think it really did anything, no real purpose for that.
Okay. All right. Let's
So,
see. So we've got a couple more of your grandfather.
yes, ma'am.
Look at that.
So, yeah. That there is the M1917A1 Browning machine gun, which my grandfather was an ammo bearer. So, although he most likely did not shoot that machine gun, excuse me, he probably could have carried ammo for it alongside his M1 Garand rifle. But I'm not totally for certain. That's what I'm going to assume for now because, like I said, we only really have these pictures and certain documents and things like that, but I'm just going off of what I know. So that's my assumption, and like I said, that's just a goofy picture, nothing really serious or no training going on. But yeah, that's that's a picture. So yeah.
Let's see. We've got some more. Go ahead and talk, Morley, if you wanted.
I was going to say on that machine gun, during the First War when they were using that and the Second, it usually took 3 to 4 men to man that gun. You had one that carried the gun. You had one that carried the tripod. You had an ammo bearers, and so it was pretty heavy.
Sir. Feed the ammo, yeah.
So I have to say, I'm looking at you, Luca, and I'm looking at your grandfather's photo, and oh my goodness, do the two of you look alike? Right
Thank you.
now, I'm looking at this photo, and then I'm not talented enough yet to put both of them side by side, but I want everybody to take a look at the uniform itself, the positioning of the hand, the ring on the pinky finger. Don't think I didn't notice that, Luca. And then I'm going to show you another photo. Okay, let's see. Look at that.
That's your grandpa.
That's Luca in his grandfather's uniform. Now,
Yes,
the
ma'am.
pinky ring, is that your grandfather's as well?
No, well, unfortunately it's not. That's just one I had, but
And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
yeah, no.
That's a great photo.
Yeah.
And I mean, it just goes to show how much you love the knowledge of the military and love the veterans that were in the military. This to me is just amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Ron says definitely a strong resemblance. I agree 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
We have a couple more of you. Now you do reenactments, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. My first one was Linden, Tennessee, a while ago. I think fall, about a year ago. I'm not for sure totally, 2 maybe, but yeah, I did my first reenactment. I wish I had, yeah, there I am in that. I wish I had some more accurate gear, but that was just all I had at the moment, and it really was a surreal experience because you can see movies and play video games and hear tales and stories about war, but being in a reenactment is so, it puts you into the situation, and especially me, for not ever having any experience with really firearms or war or anything like that. It was insane because even though there were blanks being fired, it was just such a weird scenario to be in, and to think about that men actually went through this however long ago, and how they had to push through and keep going through that no matter what. That's just insane to me. That's why I really have dedication towards veterans of all kinds, because I can't picture ever in my wildest dreams being in that scenario where I had a rifle and I was told to go, eliminate another person or something like that. I can't ever imagine having to do that and put up with what that feeling is like afterwards or coming home, anything like that. I was in I think a scout car in the reenactment, and I was supposed to be dead, obviously, but we pulled up to a building around a building side, and it's supposed to look like it got out of repair, like it was being shot at. So I had to pull a smoke bomb and throw it kind of near the car, basically to make it look like it's, coming out of smoke. It's destroyed. But men, basically what I'm getting at, soldiers came up around the car and used it for cover, and they would shoot their rifles, which had blanks loaded into it, around the car, and I could hear the pop of the guns firing. And even though I was in the car and I knew like no one was in any real danger, it was so just nerve-wracking. You could feel the adrenaline going through you and how everything felt so real. It's crazy to think about that men actually did that with real bullets and real guns and things like that. It's so unimaginable to me. That's why I really appreciate this veterans that did go through this and they did do what they had to do for their country. To me, that's insane. I can't imagine that. That's why I'm sorry. I'm thinking so much about how would you ever be put in that scenario and go through with that? That's insane to me. And then come home, and especially Vietnam veterans being treated as they did when they came home after going through things like that, and the things that they saw. I can't ever in my mind picture that. That's why I appreciate people like Morley so much and veterans that do things for me when I tell them thank you. I got this canteen here from a man named Ted Poss. I said thank you to him, and I gave him a letter about how much I appreciate what he did for my country and for me, because I don't know if I'd be around if he didn't, or etc. But to me, that's insane. And I appreciate him and all veterans so much. And I think that my generation should. That's why I try to do what I do, whether I'm in a reenactment or, dressing up in general, just to show veterans today, while they're still around, that we acknowledge you. And that even though you didn't get a warm welcome when you came home at first, just know that now this generation recognizes what you did and what you had to do.
On the nose, Luca.
Thank you.
That's exactly my sentiment. And I couldn't have said it any better than you just did.
Thank you.
Luca, was
Yes.
that canteen a metal one or a plastic?
This is plastic because it was
Yeah,
Vietnam.
That's what we had. The green plastic.
Green plastic.
Yes, that's the one we had
No
overseas.
No hot stoves, no nothing. Just water.
That's what we had. Those are the ones we carried.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Did you carry one?
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Did you carry one canteen or did you carry multiple?
No, I just carried one.
Okay.
I carried one. A couple of the guys had two, but mainly I'd carry an antique. I carried a canteen. I think I had 3 ammo pouches. Usually tried to carry about 4 to 5 hand grenades with me, and then I had bandoliers of machine gun ammo because I was an ammo bearer also.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah,
that's
yeah. But
yeah.
you were talking about how you can't imagine, as most I don't imagine anybody could imagine what it was like. But it goes back to what I was saying before, that we were trained. We in my world anyway, the way I felt at the time, we were so well trained that when it's hard to understand. But if we got into something, a shootout, if you will, I'm trying to use the proper words. I don't want to insult anybody. You don't stop and think, well, what am I going to do if this happens? What am I going to do if that happens? Everything, you're so well trained, everything is second nature. You don't think about what you're going to do. It just comes naturally. You know automatically what to do without thinking about it. Besides keeping your butt down.
Right.
That's kind of an important thing. A lot of times when I was in battles, such as they were, like I say, you never, I was thinking about this the other night. I don't know why I got to think about it. You don't think about at the moment, you're in the moment, you don't think about what am I going to do if this happens or if that happens or anything. You don't, everything you do, everything you have to do at the time. When you fall apart is after everything's done and over with, and you're starting to come down off that high, if you will, and you think, oh my God, I could have been shot or killed out there. That's when you have time to reflect it. And it's just, I don't know, like I said, all your training is kicked in. I mean, God love our government. If nothing else, they trained us well. They train these guys that are going overseas today. Of course, these guys that go overseas today have better equipment than we ever thought of having. We didn't have some of the fancy stuff they had.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to ask Luca. So, what are your aspirations as you get older? What do you want to be?
To me, I really would like to possibly teach history or be very knowledgeable when it comes to history or wars, things like that. Yeah. I don't necessarily aspire to be in the army, but if my country calls, I will do what I have to do. But to answer that question, most likely a history teacher or someone very knowledgeable who can tell you about wars spanning from the Great War to Vietnam, and that goes through World War II, Korea, different wars in different areas, certain things like that. I would very much like to do that because to me, I can't imagine really, like Morley said, after that battle, just I want to share my knowledge and what I think about wars and how would you feel after all the guns stop firing and you look around and you just reality hits you. To me, I can't picture that or following those steps that training brought to you that you were supposed to follow. I can't picture that. I want to help people appreciate veterans and these battles and what happened because it's just crazy to me. I can't picture that at all. So yeah, most likely a history teacher, but we'll have to see how that goes. So
Well, from everything you've talked about, I mean, you were very knowledgeable in the dress, military dress, specifically, of course, the Army. But I could definitely get behind you as a history teacher because, I could see you walk in first day of school, you're all dressed up for the period of whatever war, and you're like, okay, class. I mean, that would be like the best class ever. Right? And
thank
then,
you.
that hands-on training and talking about things, letting them hold things, letting them get a real
Sure.
feel for it. Um, it's a lot like now, I can't speak, of course, for the Army, but I know, of course, the Marine Corps because I have 2 Marine veteran sons. And, they have yellow footprints, right? So when they get off the bus, they have to stand with their heels together on these yellow footprints. And I ask all the Marine veterans, what was it like in your mind when you stood on those yellow footprints, knowing that the generations before stood right there, right? So those are, and it's kind of the same thing. You holding, like you're holding that canteen, Luca, and the history behind it, and every piece of clothing from that era that your grandfather had, and that history behind it, to me is just amazing. And I think you would do a great job. I don't know, Morley, what do you think?
Oh, you know what? I'll tell you right now, you have to get in line behind me, Carol Lee, because Luca, tell mom if she wants to dump you, I'll adopt you in a heartbeat, buddy. You're in line. I'll be your daddy.
All right.
Listen, you know what? Anybody listening to this program, if they can't be proud of that boy right there, then I don't know what to tell you, because that's our future. That is our future right there.
I can't express enough how much that does mean to me because it means a lot. It really
That's
does.
sweet of you. It's very sweet of you. We appreciate that. But you're
And
our
I
future.
second you, Morley. I second that because Luca, I mean, now I have to say, so, when my kids were getting older, I think it was about 12 years old when my middle son decided he wanted to join the military.
Mhm.
But he learned a lot, of course, about guns. He learned a lot about, things of that nature. And they grew up in Montana, so it was a lot of that anyway. So it wasn't a surprise to them, but always learning more about a subject you enjoy makes it that much better, right?
For
But
sure.
I can't imagine him dressing in a specific period time frame of that military branch like you've done. I think it's amazing. And it gives that sense of what it must have been like for people, Morley, for example, people looking at you at 19, 18, 19 years old in your uniform,
Mhm.
thinking, look at this baby dressed up in this uniform, right? What kind of a thing? Because Luca, you were so baby faced in that photo. Um, it's just like, wow.
For sure. I
It brings a
definitely,
lot of
yeah,
thought.
you have to really think about that.
Mhm.
Go ahead, Morley.
It's funny, if I would have thought about it before, I would have sent a couple of pictures to you, Carol Lee. But I've got a couple of pictures of myself at the house there when I was 19 years old, 20 years old, and I look at those pictures. Oh, I have one that when I was in boot camp, but then I have two or three of them that I've got in the house here when I was overseas in uniform with my rifle and the whole
Mhm.
spiel. And I look at those pictures and I think, not only was I doggone good looking at the time, I even had hair, but I was a snot-nosed kid. I mean, I look at Luca, and I was just a couple years older than him, and I'm thinking, like he says, I to look back on it now, I say, how on earth did I ever do what I did?
Yeah,
But I did it.
yeah.
Again, all the training I was given was kicked in. Um, but I don't know. I reflect. I mean, I'm 70. I'll be 78 in about 9 months now. 8 months, 9 months, whenever November comes. I don't know, 10 months.
Right. Math
I'm
is,
I'm
math
really
is
right on
hard.
top of the math level, Anyway,
Neither. Me neither.
but um, I look back at my life and I think, wowie zowie, the things that I did, some of the things I accomplished, but
And
probably
let's
more
talk about
catastrophic.
this, Morley. Where are you today, um, mentally, right? In comparison to when you first got back.
Well, here's the thing. For my generation, and you know what, even goes forth to even to today. And I want to say this. I want to say this to anybody out there that is a veteran or has served overseas, but especially my generation. Until the day they put me on the ground, and I've talked to plenty of my friends who are Vietnam veterans, we still carry that monkey on our back.
Mhm.
It's embedded. Okay, there's only a very very few things that I talk about when I was overseas, and I mean I could probably count them on one hand. The things that I tell my own family about. Um, it's just like one time I had to go see a shrink, and this guy says to me, he says, "Well, do you want to talk to somebody?" And I looked at him. I said, "What are you talking about? Talk to somebody?" Well, do you want to talk to somebody about your experiences? And I looked at him. This is just, I don't know what, 12 years ago now. I said, let me tell you something about myself and anybody that's served where I have served. I said, there's three things about it. He says, what's that? I said, number one, it's here. I said, number two, it's here. And I said to him, I looked at him, I said, number three, it belongs to me. I said, who do
Yeah.
you want me to talk to? You haven't walked in my shoes. You don't know what I feel. I still, I finally stopped having Sorry.
No worries.
Okay.
It was only up to about 10 years ago that I finally stopped waking up with the night sweats, screaming in the middle of the night.
Yeah, and that's never easy, right? You only you know what you're feeling and what you're going through. And then
Exactly.
the veterans that you have met or even had served with, um, they recognize, but their story is even different than your story.
We all feel the same way.
Right.
We've discussed this, and that's why I think when I'm with this group of, especially the guys that I meet for breakfast at Cracker Barrel, we've all talked about it. When we meet for breakfast, we don't sit around and talk war stories. We understand each other. But if a man has a problem, we tell everyone in our group. If we meet a new guy that wants to come and join us for breakfast, we'll tell him up front. You don't have to say a word to us. Say a word about anything. But if you want to talk about something, we're going to listen. If you want to laugh about something, we're going to laugh with you. If you want to cry.
Yeah. Yeah. And I had such the privilege to be invited to one of your breakfasts.
Exactly. Yes, you
Um,
have.
what a wonderful group of people.
Thank you.
And it's amazing. Y'all just took over that corner of the restaurant. It was, but everybody just so welcoming and very warm to somebody who, one, is not a veteran, and to allow me to speak about the channel and what I do. So I, again, big shout out to you and your group there,
Uh,
Morley, because
that's sweet
um,
of you.
definitely made me feel welcome.
Well, that's very sweet. Thank you so much for that. Um, but I mean,
Yeah,
it's you learn to, after a number of years, you learn to live with the things you have to live with.
right.
But there will never be anybody on God's earth that I'll be able to tell or talk to about what the feelings or the experiences that I had.
Right.
It's a very private thing when you come out of it. Um, you know, it, I did some things over there that, like I said, I can't necessarily say I did anything I was ashamed of, but I did things that people shouldn't do.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Well,
as far as
I did it that way, but
I know what you're saying, though. I mean, obviously, people shouldn't hurt one another in general, right?
well,
So then, when you're defending yourself, it's difficult because you still, do harm to somebody.
yeah,
And even though you're protecting yourself, you still have that guilt,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
oh yeah,
it makes sense what you're saying, Morley.
yeah,
I understand that.
yeah.
I want to put out there for anybody in the chats, or if you're, just kind of following along. And if you guys have some questions for Luca or Morley, go ahead and put those in the chats for us. Luca, I have to say again, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you join us tonight and to share your enthusiasm, and all of the photos. And I mean, you've just been a great guest, and I'm glad that you were here also to be able to support Morley as well, because you two seem to have grown close in,
Yeah.
and that's important, right? And I'm really glad that you can show Morley, the younger generation is seeing these things and recognizing it and making it
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
And
For sure.
that, I think, that's huge. And it makes me feel better as well, knowing the younger generation is being brought up right.
Well,
Thank
when
you.
I have the honor of talking to people like Luca, and I've talked to a few other young fellas like him, I'll tell you what, this guy here lets me know that there's hope for this world after all. I think
Exactly.
I think we're really starting finally to get on the right track in this country.
Yeah.
With when you get a fellow like this that has an
I
Yeah.
appreciate
understanding and interest. You know.
And I have to say, Luca, so I expect you'll be keeping in contact with us and this channel, letting me know, what you're up to, what you're doing, because it'll be nice to be able to follow you in your growth um, as you progress through life. Because um, I think you've got a great head on your shoulders, and I see great things for you in the future. So,
Yes, thank you.
I
Can I quickly say before we go, I
please.
wanted to talk a little bit about my grandfather. And to me, he started out in North Africa, and he was in the North African and Italian campaign. But to me, when he was in North Africa, he was in Kasserine Pass, and he saw things that no man should ever see. Regardless, I know that no one in the military will see things that they should ever see. No human. But to me, uh, the situation he was in was such a decrease in morale that I can't I can't say this enough. And I'm sorry if I'm being repetitive, but I'm saying this truly. What I mean is that he saw other divisions be wiped out by tank divisions or panzer divisions, and the Germans circled him in and said to his division, "You can either retreat now or be killed." And he saw those other two divisions get killed near him, and they had to turn around and go back, knowing that they could have been killed just like those other two divisions. And it was such a morale decrease that you will never understand. People will never understand enough what that's like to me. And I can't say I've ever pictured that or ever felt that either. I don't speak on the behalf of him or anyone, but that's insane to me. And especially when he was in Italy, he was at Hill 609 and the battle for Monte Cassino. He was on his way to Monte Cassino, but he was wounded at Mount Pantano. He had shrapnel in his right wrist. I can't imagine that. They say people have told me that they found my grandfather kind of after the battle, walking around, kind of, out of his mind, not out of his mind, but
Days.
not in the right state of mind, because he had, obviously shell shock or army fatigue or whatever you'd like to call it. But there was a point where I'm not totally for sure. I think not a court martial, someone was speaking to him, and they said, "Son, tie your shoes." And he could barely bend over to pick up his laces and try and tie his shoes right. So he eventually got sent back to a hospital where he was talking to, other wounded soldiers or different, people that, soldiers that didn't do things right. And so there was kind of like a jail there. He spoke to some of the men there, and this was at the time, I can't remember if it was before or after, but famously Patton had came to that same hospital. I forgot which one it is, what the name is, but he gave a soldier a slap on the face because there was nothing physically wrong with him. He wasn't physically wounded, but he was mentally wounded. And it was at the same hospital. But to me, when Patton slapped him, to me that's insane to think about. I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember what I was going to say.
No worries. Deep breath. You got this.
Thank you. I can't ever imagine being told that there's nothing wrong with you because you're not physically wounded, or nothing's wrong with your appearance. You're not bleeding or wounded, or you're not blind, anything
Right?
like that. But if you can't tie your shoes, how are you going to hold a rifle and fire it correctly? That's insane to me. But that's all I really wanted to say, is that when I talk and when I speak, I can't tell you how much enough I appreciate you saying the things that you've said about me. But I just want people to know is that when they see me, they should see the veterans that served, not me. I'm just trying to show that, imagine being almost 4 or 5 years older than me. So my age, plus 4 or 5, going to do that stuff, being in the military. That's insane, whether you were prepared or not. Physically, but afterwards, the mental effects after, no one's prepared for that. I can assure you on that. That's all I wanted to say.
And you have a really good point too, Luca, because my youngest Marine veteran had some medical issues. Nothing physical. Well, he had a physically, you could see immediately, but then after like 6 months, that went away. But there was still some internal things, so you couldn't see it. And the medication that they provided made him so dizzy he couldn't get out of bed. And
Yeah.
like his muscles atrophied, and he was told he was a liar and he was a faker, and all that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of those kind of stories that are out there. I had an Army veteran on, great guy. And if you haven't heard of him, he goes by the moniker Angry Sarge. He has a YouTube channel out there. And he wears a is it Oni mask. So it's a I don't know what you would. That's the best. You'd have to just kind of look it up. Anyway, you'll know if you look him up on YouTube. But a great guy, and I had interviewed him on this channel. And interestingly enough, his story, before he even knew about my son's story, his story was exactly the same. That I mean, he actually had injuries, but they were the main things have they healed, but the pain and stuff that was caused by it was still there. And so again, he was telling me the story, and I'm like, have you been talking to my kid? Because he was called a liar, and he was called a faker, and all
sure.
those same things. And I agree with you, Luca. And I think that's very astute of you to recognize that.
Thank I
Now, did
appreciate
you have an opportunity to talk with your grandfather at all
No,
about these stories? Not at all. Okay.
no, he passed in 10 years before I was born in 2000, but he went before. But yeah, I've only been told from my dad, who was a little bit younger than Morley, so he couldn't serve in Vietnam along with his brothers. But yeah, so we lucked out with that. But yeah, I just want to show that my appreciation for these veterans. So that's all. Thank you so much. Thank you to not only Morley, thank you guys enough. Thank you to the veterans that do things for me. Like a veteran, Mr. Kenny, gave me this radio that wasn't his, but he got it for me because I couldn't carry a rifle when I do my. Sometimes when I go to places like the reserve that I was at with Morley, I can't really carry a fake rifle. So this is something I can show off that represents, something to carry. And it's insane to me that Mr. Kenny appreciates me that much that he sent this to me. That means
That's so cool.
I know. I can't thank him enough. I honestly can't. I don't. I'm sorry. I'm honestly just trying to speak and not mess up, but this means so much to me. For everyone.
There's no messing up here.
Thank you.
Samurai mask, Jason said. So Jason said, Angry Sarge, it's a samurai mask. I think he called it an Oni
Okay.
mask, but it's basically like that. So
Okay.
you can go out and to the channel at the end of this for anybody out there still watching. Make sure you can type in Angry Sarge, and you can see the whole interview with him. And he does it in that mask because he is a public figure. He works, in the government field, state, local stuff. And it's just to kind of keep what he does, his podcast and stuff, separate from his work. So, but interesting. It's all really interesting. So
Yes, ma'am. I totally agree, and I thank you and thank your sons so much for serving and what you guys have done. Thank you. That means so much to me. Even though I don't know these people, I can barely wrap my mind around what they do, and being called that after what you've seen. It's crazy. Thank you. And thank
well,
them.
thank you, and I will be sure to pass that along.
Please do.
Carol, can I say two things?
Yes,
Can I say two things real quick to Luca?
please.
Hey, Luca, first of all, actually to Carol, to you too. Carolee, Luca's mother, let's see if I can make it this big. Her head has to be, her head has to be at least that big with pride for his son right now. He's got a great mother. I like his mother a lot. And also, Luca, if you see Mr. Walsh tomorrow, tell him I will have an answer for him Wednesday on that thing we were talking about. He'll know what you mean. It's something I'm doing. I'm trying to do
I
something
will.
for him.
All right.
And it's Jim Walsh who we're talking about, clearly. So,
Yes.
but
Well, I do have, so Ron Wayne said that he has a podcast as well, and it's a 2A channel, in other words, Second Amendment channel. So he had a premiere this evening, so he had to jump off, but he said he would definitely come back, check out the recording so this is automatically being recorded on YouTube, so it's out there, and he will finish watching. And he says, again, thank you, Morley, for your service. And it was nice to meet you, Luca. So
For
thank
sure.
you, Ron Wayne.
Thank you, Ron.
I do not see any other comments or questions. And Morley, I have to ask this though. For those who are considering joining the military, regardless of branch,
Right.
any words of wisdom that you want to invoke to them?
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me backtrack a little bit. And I know I'm going to anger a lot of people by saying this. I am of the mindset that this country needs to reinstate a draft. I feel very strongly that every person, men and women both, need to serve this country at least 2 years of service to appreciate what we have, if nothing else. And if anybody's considering going in the military, I can't encourage it enough. There are so many, everybody thinks that if you join the service, automatically you're going to be thrown in a war zone or you're going to get hurt or something else. That's not true.
Agreed.
The military offers so many opportunities out there. You want to be a doctor? The military will pay for your schooling. You go to school, become a doctor. After you graduate, then you serve your time in the military. They pay for everything. College. The military just offers so much opportunity to anybody. On top of which, 18, 19, 20 years old, guess what? I was 18 when I went in. I was a snot-nosed kid when I went in. I was a grown man physically when I got out. I grew up a lot, and it helped me tremendously. I came back from overseas. I got my GED because I was a high school dropout. I got my GED through the military, and then a few years later, I put myself in college. I've got a few years of college behind me. I didn't graduate, but I do have a few years of college. I encourage anybody to join the service. It doesn't matter what branch.
I have to piggyback off of what you said too about the thought that, you join the military and automatically you're being shipped overseas to combat. Roughly 18% of all military personnel has ever been deployed overseas, period. So, the remaining have it, they've all had, I guess, auxiliary roles, if you will, in communications or something. And a lot of it had been in peacetime. So,
absolutely.
Because there's been a lot of peacetime and that they were in and they trained, but there was nothing, popping off anywhere that they had to worry
Exactly. Could I mention also something I just popped in my mind? Luca was talking about not imagining going to war or anything like that. At our meeting, we have our VVA meeting tomorrow night, and I met a lady a number of months back, and I feel very, very lucky that she's gonna be our guest speaker tomorrow night at our meeting. She was a combat nurse in Vietnam, and the reason I bring that up is a lot of people don't realize there were women in Vietnam. They weren't in a combat role.
Right.
But they were in
nurses and
nurses. They were the donut dollies.
Yeah.
They played a vital role.
Yeah.
And they don't get acknowledged at all. And Beverly is going to be our speaker tomorrow. She was in combat. And Luca, here's something else to think about too. And I would highly recommend if anybody wants to get a sense of what it was somewhat like, I read a book a number of months back, and I've passed it on to a lot of people. It's by Kristen Hanna. It's called The Women. And she's written like 4 or 5 books, but this one in particular, it's about a 18-year-old girl that joins the military, becomes a nurse, and it goes through her life. And as I read it, I'm recognizing a lot of the places. It's fictional, but this lady, Christian Hanna, who I have no idea who she is, but she researches everything. And I'm telling you, if you want to read a 3-box tearjerker, great book. It's called The Women. I highly recommend it to anybody. That's
There
it.
you go.
How'd you get that?
I am that good, Morley.
You are amazing. That is a great book. But because it really tells a story of what things were like in Vietnam for the most part, especially in the base camps, and what these women went through, the nurses. And people don't even know about the nurses or the donut dollies. They know about Bob Hope going over there and some of the actresses, but that's it.
And I believe my husband's aunt, yes, was a combat nurse in Vietnam.
Mhm.
Wow.
My aunt was a combat nurse in Vietnam. That's where she met her husband.
Wow.
So yeah, and that's
And
how
she knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
She knows
yeah,
exactly what I'm talking about without saying
for
it.
sure.
That's so sweet. And I
well-
thank her for the service.
And we'll pass that along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to pass that along.
Can
I
say
think-
something?
Please.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I think that's insane with the combat nurse and meeting your husband in that state of war. Meeting your husband as a soldier, that's insane. Sorry, that's all I wanted to say.
No, and they're still together, right? I mean, and it's a great story. They've been together ever since, and there you have it. So
Great.
you can find a silver lining in adverse conditions, right? So
Absolutely.
just goes to show. But yeah, go
Sorry.
ahead. No, please.
I was gonna say something that I don't really think about as often is that during war, I never really thought about it this way, but to me, like especially during World War II, kids that were from like the countryside, like my grandfather who was from Memphis, Tennessee, going up to Africa, he'd barely been out of state or country, going all the way to Africa or Italy, that's insane to me. And like Morley said, going to Vietnam, I mean, that's crazy. Sorry, that's all I wanted to comment on.
That's
But, yeah.
okay. I think I agree with you. It is. It's such a culture shock in that
Well,
regard.
If you've never experienced it, you don't know. And then, it was an experience of a lifetime.
Yeah.
Do I have any desire to go back? No. A lot of people go back to Vietnam today. I
They
have no
do.
desire to go back. I mean,
They
it's a
do.
beautiful country. I mean, it's lush. It was green. There were people over there trying to hurt me, but
Right there, yeah, that little thing,
yeah, small detail.
It's not bad, it's
But-
great.
But it was, it was a.
Jason
It-
said her husband retired from the Army as lieutenant colonel. He was a fixed wing and rotor pilot.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, that's who she met over there in Vietnam.
And another thing the military does too, no matter what branch, it creates a camaraderie. Not you get friends, but camaraderie is a different word than friends.
Right.
I can't explain it until you've experienced it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the great things about being in the military as well. Your back is always covered with each other.
Right.
That makes a big
Right.
difference. That makes
Yep.
a big difference.
Well,
For
I
sure.
want to thank both of you very much for taking the time away from your families and joining tonight to have this conversation, because I think it's important. And we've got 2 different generations, 3 if you count me, which I don't count in this regard, but two generations and seeing that generational gap when it comes to the military, that gap is shrinking, and I'm happy to see that happen.
Yeah.
So thank you for your insight, Luca. And Morley, thank you so much. And please thank your wife and your son and your daughter-in-law who walks on water
Absolutely.
for all of their help as well.
Mhm.
If you guys want to hang tight, I'm going to go ahead and get this wrapped up.
Okay.
So don't
Uh,
go anywhere. Do you have something else to say, Morley?
Yeah, I just want to say one more thing
Please.
that's kind of important to me. And
Yes.
this goes to these young people, Jesus Christ himself is younger than me, the way I feel. But these people coming back from overseas today, I know they have a lot of issues. And I just want to say to anybody out there listening that you are having problems, be it with the VA, be it with your mind, don't be afraid to ask for help. If you're having problems with the VA, go to your local VSO. Those people are there to help you, and they will. I work real close with our VSO out here in Columbia. The VSOs will help you in ways you can't even begin to imagine. And they don't charge the veterans for anything, and that goes for the spouses as well. You know, the spouses are just as important. Um, like I said, there's these people coming back today are they can't talk to anybody. I
Right.
have some friends, lady friends that, like, I talked to one yesterday. Well, actually, I'll tell you who it was. It was Andy Ogles. Andy Ogles, our congressman. I work with him as well. One of his people called me up. I'm trying to put something together, and her husband served overseas, and she was telling me he just, he's not the same man. I can't talk to him. He's different. I says, give him a space. Don't push the issue. He'll never tell her what happened.
Right.
But to these people coming back from overseas, I know what's in your head. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Swallow your pride. Go to your VSO. It's confidential, and they can help you.
Yeah. Yeah.
God
And
bless
those are
you.
great words. And
Yeah.
also, so again, my email for this channel is very simple: conversations with a vet at gmail.com. So if there's veterans out there, especially here within Tennessee, and you're looking in a specific county for a VSO or something, reach out. I can certainly take a look. I can help. I've got a lot of contacts. At a minimum, I can point you in Morley's direction and he can look for you. But no, truly, I do have a lot of contacts. So here in Tennessee, so it's pretty simple to get that information and get it passed to you. So don't feel like you have to do all of it by yourself and search, especially if you don't even know what you need to search for. So reach out. There's always somebody willing to hear and listen. So
Absolutely.
again, I want to say thank you both to you, Morley and Luca. I definitely appreciate the conversation. And again, welcome home. Thank you for your service, Morley.
Thank you.
Luca, thank you. I wish you nothing but the best in your young endeavors. So I'm going to go ahead and get this wrapped up. But if you two want to stay put, that would be wonderful.
Alrighty.